Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Holly Furgason from Blue Sparrow Pilates, and I'm really happy that you guys are here. It's been such a treat to spend a little bit of time with other teachers every week for an hour and just talk about different topics. Today's topic, we're talking about how to use humor to boost your teaching. And I have with us today Leslie Wall. And Leslie is I can't stop laughing already. Leslie is a lead instructor trainer at Merithew's headquarters studio in Toronto and an amazing instructor. And so thanks for being here. Leslie, you're not muted, so you can say hello.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be asked, and hopefully I've brought my humorous hat with me today.
We don't expect you to just be able to like turn it on, but
I hope not.
if you knew her teaching, you'd know she is pretty funny. So one of the things that I think that I've been struck with over the few courses that I've had with you, Leslie, is that your humor kind of puts everybody at ease. And I don't know if anyone else has ever gone to headquarters of Merithew and taken an instructor training course or something. It feels stressful because you want to do a good job and you want to not impress everyone, but kind of impress yourself and not be a total, you know, not mess up to the point that people are like, who is she? How'd she get here? And so there is a level of stress anytime you put yourself out there and, make yourself vulnerable. And so when I've taken Leslie's courses, she always instantly puts people at ease. And part of it is just her sense of humor. And we're talking about humor today, but obviously I don't expect her to just be like funny, to just appear and be like hilarious. Maybe, but I just thought maybe that she could shed some light on how we can bring out our own authentic sense of humor into our teaching and make it our own in a way that might have some benefits for our students. I was definitely reading a little bit about humor, and some of the things that there's actual science that says humor does is it is good for your health, that having a sense of humor almost is like the mind's immune system. It stimulates your mind's immune system, that a sense of humor is a potential stress buster, that humor can allow people to come together and helps you to create a common ground and helps you to feel like you're part of something. It also puts you at ease. It helps to build trust. And part of that trust is them getting a little glimmer, people getting a little glimmer at who you are as a real person, who's your authentic self. And humor is hard to fake. So it is a sort of window into who you are. And then it tends to make people seem more approachable. And so all of those reasons are reasons that, being a little bit funny, lighthearted, not too serious, can help. So I was wondering, Leslie, when you first started teaching Pilates, do you think you were funny then?
Honestly, no, because I think, like most new instructors, you're so worried about saying the right things, seeing the right things, sounding knowledgeable, knowing what you're talking about. So it definitely didn't happen naturally in the beginning, but once I felt comfortable in my own skin and confident too, then of course that natural ability of humor started to come out.
Yeah, I would agree that I think in the beginning it's like we're so serious because we want to try to do all of the things that we're supposed to do in a good session. And I mean thinking back on it, I don't have that many role models that I thought were funny Pilates teachers. I think I was more in the Pilates teachers that were really serious, and it was like no joke, and we were just like getting down to business, and it was a bit intimidating for sure. So I do think that that's a sort of novel approach. I don't know if Joseph Pilates was funny when he taught sessions. I've heard he was funny in his real life
Mm,
outside of teaching, but I've never heard that he was funny as a teacher
that's
while he was teaching.
Yeah, the few video footages that you see, he doesn't seem like there was much humor
No,
in
it's
it.
He
like
looks
grab your neck, push down,
yeah.
push
Exactly. Touch your head to the floor
down.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah. Looks
exactly.
pretty harsh. And the whole German mentality as well, right? The whole
Yes. Well,
Yeah, and a totally different generation. Go ahead, Leslie.
well, I think too it has evolved over time as well. Like when I took the comprehensive course in Toronto, that was back in 2001. And to be honest, it was about 2 or 3 days after 9/11. So it was a time in my life that I probably won't ever forget just because of the circumstances. But back then, we had mat and reformer manuals, but there were no Cadillac chair and bear manuals. So all the teachers that we had, Sally Belanger, Stefania Della Pia, Lorene DeBow, so some of those classic instructors knew their information in and out, were very knowledgeable, but it was very yes and no at that time. And so I would consider myself a little bit of the class clown. I had a class of 18 people, and when we got to CCB and we had no manuals, so we literally were writing down, okay, chest expansion, standing, press arms back, and return. So I had no pictures, I had no essence, no goal, no muscles, nothing to reference or go back to. And so I remember there was a day we'd gotten so far behind that I was just writing and writing. And finally I just looked at Sally. I'm like, I cannot write anymore. And so I threw my pen across the room, which then got everybody laughing because we were all feeling the same way. But it's the time in which that I learned it was very serious. And now we ask more questions and we get people's input much more. Okay, why is she feeling it like this? Why is he feeling it like this? And then, that allows for a lot more sort of integration and discussion, which is kind of good.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Do you think that you had teachers or mentors that encouraged you to bring, like once you had sort of started teaching, and you had mentors or other more senior teachers watching you teach, did they ever give you the feedback to like let your real personality come out more, or was that never anything? Yeah.
No, no. And if anything, I have the privilege of working at head office, and that can be very scary because at any given time, Moira can walk in and be like, what are you doing? Which has never happened, thankfully. And she's very humble and great to work with. But I think the only things that kind of go on when somebody like myself is in there who's a little bit loud and tends to put humor in her teaching is that the studio manager might come in and be like, can you guys just keep it down because we've got several classes going on. So that kind of stuff might happen, but there hasn't been anybody really influential who's encouraged me. I mean, the only person that I would say that incorporated humor would be Sally Belanger. She, right? Sylvia, you've been taught by her.
Oh yeah, Sally with the please is implied.
Right? I mean, and with her humor comes with a huge amount of knowledge, which she's got that strong balance to be able to play off both sides. And so if I was to say anybody, it would be her.
Yeah. I've only had her once for one workshop, and it was at a conference, and it was postural analysis review for ITs. And so it was very like, we have 2 hours to get through it. So
yeah. That's not a fair one. No, you've got to see her in her real, like I have a foot thing. I don't like touching people's feet. I don't like people touching my feet, but she would constantly just come and poke my feet or do things just to try to get us laughing and things like that. It's just little things that she would do just to relax us, and like you said at the beginning, she did so because she could sense that we were stressed or worried, and she would try to calm us down and make us feel like all is good, we're all okay here, this is just Pilates, it's okay.
Yeah. I personally, I met Leslie when you were one of 2 instructor trainers at the head office that I didn't know that I had to come to head office and co-teach Matt IMP with the 2 ITs that I didn't know. from, you know, coming from across the country and stay there for 2 weeks and teach, and get feedback every day on what I was doing right or what I was doing wrong in order to become an IT. And I was so intimidated to be there just in general. And then you immediately like put everybody at ease and made it like lighthearted and informative. And I learned a lot, but it also was like, oh, okay, she's like a real person and she's not judging me. She's just trying to help me learn, is how it felt by kind of incorporating humor to me.
Well, and I think everybody has a history. And so my history comes from a strong dance background, and dancers, you know, if there are any in the group, you know what that world is like. It's very judgmental, it's very strict. And so I know for myself, I never want a client or a student to come in and feel less than. That is the last thing I want to do. And so I really make an effort to make everybody feel included, to make sure they all have a voice. I get everybody talking right away on day one, just so that it encourages right away that you have a voice. There are no stupid questions, because I guarantee you, if you're asking it in your head, someone else is too. So let's get it out, you know, right or wrong, I don't care. Let's just start talking. And I think it comes from my background of, you know, don't talk, do as I said. If something falls apart, you still have to go on and carry on, you know. And I just wanted to change that up in my adult years and my choice of work of being an instructor.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I was thinking about humor in my own teaching, and I've heard that humor, you know, you can't really teach people to have humor or to use humor, but that often if you look at your influences, you can think about how you might emulate other people or things that you think are funny. So maybe there's a teacher you think is funny, or maybe there is an actor or a TV show. Like I grew up like being obsessed with Monty Python. So anything like physical humor like Monty Python is like totally my jam. I don't know how I would incorporate that into teaching Pilates, but sometimes I can kind of see ways that I sort of do. And so I'm just wondering if there are either favorite people or TV shows or actors or books that make you laugh, Leslie. Others can contribute too, but
Can't hear.
you can't hear me?
Oh, there now. It just
Yeah.
it froze for a minute, and now
Yeah.
I hear you. Sorry.
Oh, so I don't know which part you heard, but I'm just wondering if there's any famous people that we might also know that make you laugh and that you enjoy their humor.
Well, I think in some sick way, well, first off, spontaneous humor is the kind of humor that I really enjoy. If I see the punchline coming, it is not funny to me. With that being said, I mean, somebody like Ellen, her scare tactics, that whole thing, I honestly, that's where I was going with, I think that there's something wrong with me, because if I can scare people,
What?
I know it's so strange, but that is so humorous to me. But in terms of where I've gotten my humor, I'm a single child with a single parent, but my mom's side of the family is quite large, and so we have quite, you know, a lot of cousins and family functions and whatnot. And so if you're not loud and heard and or funny, you won't be heard in this family. And so I think it really comes strongly from my family background in terms of incorporating humor and having a good time. Life is stressful enough. We've got to find some fun in it. So that's how we deal with it. But Ellen, I would say, is like a really big influence in terms of, I wish I could be as humorous as she is. She's hilarious.
She is really funny. Yeah, and I think that you bring up a good point, which is partly why I wanted to talk about humor, is because, you know, people are stressed and they are worried, and incorporating humor in your own unique, authentic way that feels good to you might be a good way to put people at ease, especially when, like Sylvia and I were talking before everybody joined, that you know, teaching a lot of mat work. It's like some of our clients may have never done mat work before. They'd only been on the equipment with us. And all of a sudden it feels like your body's in its own way or something. Like you can't escape your body if you don't have enough mobility to move it comfortably on the mat. And that, you know, we're all judging ourselves probably at some level, and to be able to put people at ease and get people thinking more about kind of a lighthearted approach to Pilates, especially in these times, might be really beneficial for people.
You could be the best Pilates instructor, but if you are dry and inhale, exhale, they are not going to come back to you, you know. So yes, you want to be knowledgeable. Yes, you want to be clear and detailed, but you also need to have fun. And there are other benefits also to laughing is that you burn calories. Hello.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, right? So, and who said Pilates can't be fun? No one. So it has to be serious. You've got to do your job in the best way possible, but you also need to be a little bit more lighthearted and understanding. Everybody has bad days. Everybody has good days. But on those bad days, if we can pull somebody out of it and just get them away from the stress, the worries of the world for that 1 hour that you have them, then we're doing our job.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I mean, other benefits, you all can comment, has anybody noticed any other benefits from using, you know, laughter or humor in a session? Are you guys normally laughing with your clients?
Still true.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah. But I think, Leslie, you and I met when you were doing the training course here in London, and I don't know if you remember the group. It was Christy, Krista, and Megan were the three gals that were in it, and I was just auditing.
Okay.
Right.
It was a reformer.
It was mat work.
Oh, Matt. Okay. Yep.
And one of those gals, I was mentoring a little bit, and I, as a person, and I'm incredibly sarcastic and funny, and it comes across, and I don't even try to be, and apparently I am, so I've been told. And so then one of those gals was trying to teach like I did, sarcasm and humor, except that isn't her personality. She's sweet. Okay, no one describes me as sweet. And that's not, you know. So my biggest advice to her was find your own voice. Okay, so use your kind of humor. Don't try to use my humor. Okay, because my humor makes sense to me and it's going to come off. And like you said earlier, Holly, you can't fake this. So if she was trying to teach the way I was and throw off a sarcastic comment, but that isn't her way.
It has to be genuine, right? It has.
Yeah, it wasn't authentic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
and I've felt that before when I tried to use other people's cues, and like they might say, you know, squeeze your booty, or I don't know. I can't even say booty in a way that sounds like me. It's just so not me. Yeah. Or when I was younger and I was trying to be cool and talk about like alcohol or drugs or like cool culture, it was like, it all sounded so ridiculous on me because it wasn't actually who I was. I wasn't actually into those things. So I do think it has to come from who you are, and like Leslie said earlier, it has to come from you having the confidence to know you know what you're doing, and then kind of think about how you take your teaching to the next level. And that next level of teaching beyond, you know, like you've mastered the exercises, is like, how do you make an inclusive space for people to learn? And most people don't learn really well from like super rigid, scary environment, and at least not here in, you know, most places I've been. I think that we all need a little levity in order to feel like our brains can turn on and check in. I don't know. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add to that? No. I don't know if another example I was thinking of is sort of, I feel like I have a few lines that over the years have kind of repeated themselves in my life, where I'll be teaching and I'll suddenly realize everybody's super stressy or like judgy, or I don't know, it's just a weird vibe. And that if I say a few things that are lighthearted, or I mean, one-liners is like not exactly what I mean, because I'm not telling jokes, but just saying things that put people at ease and make them laugh a little. Like, for example, I have said from time to time, you know, nobody comes to Pilates because they want a six-pack neck. And
No.
people are like, oh, and they laugh a little. And it's not like that's like a ha 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 funny joke. But it is funny in the moment of teaching, where it just puts everybody in a different mindset of like, this is serious work, but it doesn't have to mean we're not enjoying it. And so I just wondered if anybody had any, you know, experience of having things that they're like, oh, I know, I have this one thing that if I insert it, it usually works with most groups. Everybody's like, no.
No, you know, I have some stock jokes, but of course right now I can't think of them. But
Okay. Yeah.
but I
But
have
like,
some
you pull them out
stock
of your
some
back
stock
pocket
stuff
when
that
you need
they
it.
come out, or a certain way I'll describe something that will generate a little bit of levity. And then what'll happen is, or my clients that have heard my stock jokes about 15,000 times, then I'll have a new person and she gives me full guffaw laughter. I'm like, you're new. You haven't heard that as many times as everybody else. Right. So you get some fresh, you know, you got some fresh meat and they're like, oh, that's really funny. I'm like, yeah, well, not really. Everyone else has heard it 40 times.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing with humor is it creates a sense of community in the classes, and they're in it together and they're laughing together. And then I don't know about you, but I teach mostly groups, and so then they get to know each other and they laugh together. And then when someone isn't there, they're asking how Bonnie is or how Susie is, etc. And if we were all busy being inhale, exhale, do this because I said so, it's harder to create that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that thinking back on experiences I've had going to different studios, I have had, like Leslie said, good instructors where, you know, I might go to Hawaii, or I might go to, I don't know, someplace in Europe and visit and be like, oh, I'm going to book a Pilates session. And the places that are kind of magical in my memory were places that it created an experience beyond just the exercises, and where I wasn't just in my head, but I became part of a community that, you know, even was just temporary. And it felt like I was also being acknowledged by the teacher, that I wasn't just anonymous. And I mean, I'm an introvert, so anonymity is sort of attractive to me. But at the same time, when I go to take a class, I don't want to feel like I am invisible. And so somehow by interacting through humor and through just like laughing a little bit, it helps you to brings you in the fold really quickly. And I don't know, I just feel like it gives a little bit of extra magic and extra another layer to the experience that you're offering at your studio or with your classes.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
I think it also goes back to your history. What happened to you as a youngster, right? I know for me, like you, I was an introvert. I was painfully shy, painful. I would not say a word because I was so worried about saying something wrong. And so right now, you know, as an instructor, I don't teach a lot of clients. And so right now I'm suffering huge with what's going on, but thankfully I'm able to spend a lot more time with my girls and just take that on full force. But I think because I was so worried as a kid and as a young teenager to say something wrong or say the wrong answer, that now with my students, that's the last thing I want them to feel. Say the wrong answer. Who cares? Let's just get it out. Let's get you talking. And I think humor can really help people feel that calmness and that encouragement to speak up.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's interesting because Moira and you and myself all said that we were really shy growing up. And yeah, I was like, I couldn't look at people, even into my college years, I didn't talk to people. I think that's why I liked dancing, is because you didn't have to speak.
And for you, was this really a hard adjustment to move into now using your voice? Because for me,
Yes.
it was huge.
Yes, I remember I taught at Amy McDonald's studio. Some of you might know her, in Michigan. And it was a studio that had 3 small rooms, and there were doors between each, and they were sort of kind of connected. And I would like shut the door and be in there with my practice client and talk as quietly as I possibly could, in the hopes that nobody would hear the stupid things that I was saying and, call me out on it. And I remember for years having clients say, "Can you talk a little louder? I really can't hear you." And they weren't hard of hearing. I just was talking so quietly. And that took a long time to get past. But I do think that's one of the cool things about teaching Pilates, is that it's almost like self-improvement in order to be able to be more capable and more full in the world beyond just we're Pilates teachers. It's like taught me a lot of skills that have made me a better person. Even if I were to leave Pilates, I would still have those skills.
I agree. Full force. Yep.
Interject. But
Yeah.
First of all, I met you, Leslie, a year ago. I was in Toronto taking an advanced chair, so I met you, and
Hey.
I totally remember your humor and lightness, levity. So it was great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Made a great impression. And as soon as I picture, I'm like, oh yeah, Leslie, she's so sweet. Like, and I also think it's easier when you're a studio owner, as not the studio owner, as I come in and teach my sessions at someone else's studio. Like, I feel that someone might be watching, the studio owner's always watching. Yeah. So I do talk, and I know she's got ears. So even if I'm talking privately to a client, about something that's there or our business, I feel like there's always someone possibly listening. And that's why I feel like it's hard to be yourself when it's not your place. Just my 2 cents.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. And I think even though I am at head office and we have so many instructors there, we feed off of each other. And I don't think there's ever been a time where I've been like, oh my God, why would she say that? In fact, I say the opposite. I'm always going, oh my God, what a great way of explaining that. I also have the privilege at head office of watching people like Holly that want to take, the IT program. I watch those videos. I have learned more from watching those videos of people that are trying to get into our course, where I'm like, oh, I am so stealing that cue.
Oh yeah.
Right? So it's amazing to me, and I say it to myself all the time, stop being so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And we do it, all of us do it to each other. When in actual fact, most people are looking at you going, wow, you're awesome. Like, great cue, fantastic way of looking at it,
I say I have spent a lot of this last 8 weeks studying everybody else's cue, like just watching any free whatever's online, like Instagram, watching, studying, like just taking mental note always of how people are teaching.
Well, I was looking last night at online at a few things, and there was an interview with John Cleese, if you know who that is. John Cleese, and he was talking about humor, and he was saying that there's no way you could walk over to your computer or your piece of paper and have just like a blank document and be like, okay, I'm going to write something really funny right now. Like, you would just totally fail. Nobody could do that. And that the beginning, you're kind of emulating other things, other teachers, other people you like, or other things that you think are funny. And then you start to take that and mold it into who you are as a teacher. And I think I definitely can say that that's true in terms of like cues that I might have used because I heard them from somebody else. And then they sort of evolved into my own type of cue, or I've started to kind of create a new way of saying that thing that is different. I don't know. So I think humor and our ability to cue kind of both come from that, mimicking to begin with. And we learn a lot through watching each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
What were you going to say?
I can't say booty either. Like, what? How am I going to do
No.
this? Bottom, butt, what?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Some of it is
and-
also contextual, right? Like
Absolutely.
the humor that works for us here is definitely not going to work in a different country, in a different environment. Even what we're going to be using now under this pandemic that we might poke fun at being in isolation, etc., that won't make sense when we're all back in the world where we're in contact with each other. And the conversation about booty, I remember, Holly, you and I first met, you came to Equilibrium in Michigan and taught there.
Mhm.
And in Michigan, I'm in London, Ontario, and in Michigan, they were shocked that I would refer to our backside as a bum. Because for them, a bum is a guy living on the street, right? As opposed to, I don't know if you remember at Equilibrium, they refer to your tushy. They don't
that
ever use
sounds
the
like
word.
Michigan. That's so cute.
Right? So the context of the lingo in Michigan is different than the lingo in Ontario, versus the time frame, versus the context of what are we living through at a different time, versus what's appropriate in, Asia. I know, Leslie, I see you keep posting that you're going to Asia to do courses, and I'm sure what humor works in Asia is very different than what we do with North America, where they're much more quieter culture. I don't think they're not as big at calling somebody out on something. So it's thinking about your audience and context.
Oh, I can't hear you again.
Oh, really?
Oh, there. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're in a country like Holly, you can contest to this as well. That when you're in a country where you need a translator, that humor side really is challenging to be able to translate. And often, like you, Sylvia, I'm often sarcastic too. And so when I sometimes say something, the translator will look at me and go, I don't understand what you mean. So then I'm like, oh yeah, where am I? I have to remember where I am and just say it direct. But I remember that, I don't know if you've had this experience, Holly, but there was a time where I was in Korea. And usually the Korean students are amazing, but this particular group was really giving me a run for my money. And so I had assigned the homework the night before, and we were coming in the next day. And of course, I'm like, okay, so let's go through the homework. And then all eyes went down. And so, of course, I'm looking at the translator, and translator's looking at me. And so I'm like, okay, so let's go through question number 1, still eyes completely down. And so then I said, can you please translate this for me? If you think by just looking down, I don't realize that you have not done the homework, you are mistaken. So let's verbally go through it all together now, because it's going to happen. So, things like that, where body language is still the same across the board, right? Mm-hmm. So interpreting that and then running with it and still making it humorous is still something I will encourage to do, because I want to keep it lighthearted as well.
Yeah, I think that teaching in South Korea and also in China a few times, it's just so different culturally. And so, I mean, the students really want to do the right thing and be respectful. And so often respect can be, not being disruptive, and humor could be perceived as disruptive. And so usually when I teach for, say, 3 weeks or something in China, it's like, it takes me a whole week to get them to realize, to get the students to realize that I'm like a cool person. I'm not judging them. I want to be like, maybe the friend is the wrong word, but like, I will be their friend in learning. Like, we're going to learn together, and that I'm not just there to like stuff information into their brains. And then it usually gets to be really fun.
Yeah.
But humor is tricky. I've gotten myself in trouble a few times with translators, but I will say, I know I have a good translator when they stop and look at me like you just described, because it tells me that they are actually listening to what I'm saying, and they're not just saying what they think I'm going to say, because they've translated, 100 courses that are all the same. And then I'm actually like, no, I'm saying this, and that's totally different than what you expect. And so I always like that moment because it feels more collaborative.
Totally.
Yeah. Does anyone have any comments or things that they want to mention about this topic? We haven't really in a straightforward way addressed how humor translates to being online, teaching online. I don't know if anyone else has had, I know Sylvia, you mentioned last week that you were teaching with everybody unmuted. And I've tried that a few times and it just, it hasn't worked yet for my clients in group classes, but they end up muting themselves. So they kind of like the isolation, I guess. And so in terms of humor, I feel like I'm like, it must be what it's like to be on TV where you're like telling a joke and in my own head, I'm like, boom, boom, and like, then it's total dead silence and you're just like, okay, moving on. And it's hard to feel if anything is like landing or connecting because of students being on mute. I don't know. Has anyone had that experience? Just me?
I don't mute my folks, so
I know.
they shoot all sorts of sarcastic comments at me first, even. So, but
that's awesome.
That's the way we roll in the studio, anyways.
Yeah.
So they're used to that. So it's worked for me, and nobody has got too much background noise. And if anybody does have a dog barking or whatever, they mute themselves. So that's worked. So I've been able to get that two-way feedback. So my teaching experience, other than I'm doing it through a screen, isn't that different.
Yeah. I would say
Leslie,
that, the difference is only in that interaction, but everything else feels the same.
Leslie, I want to tell you, you gave me a kernel that time that I was auditing. And one of the things that you had said was, I don't ever want to hear you say, I'm saying this cue and the stupid client isn't getting it. If you are saying it, you can't keep saying it over and over and over again the same way. You have to change the way you say it so they get it. So that is something that has really, and I wasn't even a student in that course. I was auditing. You were teaching the other gals, and I was in the corner taking notes furiously. And that has changed a lot about the way I teach, and that I will feel like I'm repeating myself. Raise your arm overhead, bring your arm up beside the ear, and you feel like you're saying it 3 or 4 times, because I know that saying the same thing over and over again, if they're not getting it, that isn't their job to get it. It's my job to find a way to speak in the way that they can hear it. So I want to give you that feedback that has really changed my teaching, and I think that's part of. And that might dovetail into the humor, because how you deliver your humor has to be tailored to how your people are responding. You have to read the room, feel what's going on with your people, whether it's with your cues or your humor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody must have said that to me as well, because I'm so exposed to so many teachers at head office, but we all learn differently. So that's what we have to be mindful of. But, some of the common humorous things that I'll say is, if I say something like lift your right leg and then one poor person lifts their left, I'm like, okay, so Rebecca, your other right leg. And then that usually gets a little bit of a laugh or something, but just also it's okay. You want to make sure that I'm watching you. You want to focus on you. I get it. I got to look at everybody else though too. So it's just things like that, but being mindful that we don't all learn the same way. We don't all understand those audible cues. And that might take people time to have that understanding.
Yeah. Awesome. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have a super dry, wit sense of humor, kind of a la Tom McCook, if you have ever worked with him down in the South Bay. But I know he's not a STOT trainer, but I have noticed that I make fun of myself a lot, just in, gesture, or the way I'm demoing things. And, you don't want to walk around like an ape with your shoulders in your ears or whatever. And that translates through different languages too, which is always very nice. But even asking clients, maybe like I teach my advanced class tonight, and they're super diligent and focused and always, always right on point. And then, asking them to do the last 2 reps, even with a smile or something like that. Like, will always bring a little enjoyment when things get, we're still flowing really well, but things get maybe a little too heavy and dense as well. So, and then I don't even have to crack jokes. I can just, they just laugh on their own.
Yep.
Yeah.
What I've started to do too with the very few clientele that I would have if I slip into somebody's class as a teacher is, and this is something over the last couple of years I started to incorporate, is they hear those cues all the time. They hear you talking and they're so reliant on you cueing them that I find that sometimes it just becomes almost like a little bit of verbal diarrhea. It's just repetitive. And so what I have then started to do is ask them questions. Okay, so when we're doing something like, as an example, back rowing, where should we be feeling this? And so I get them to start to now, where am I supposed to feel? Rather than relying on me to tell them, I ask them questions, because the second your brain starts to think about, where is it? Then you start to connect better into that muscle or area, whatever it might be. And then if somebody is wrong, I'm like, that's okay, try again. Another area of the body, So don't be afraid also to ask questions,
Yeah.
Get them talking these days. It gives people a lot more accountability, I think, and increases their interoception too. It's pretty awesome.
Exactly. Then they can relate to now outside of that class. I should be working on these muscles or be focused in this area. You're giving them more tools.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Well, Leslie and I have a fun experiment that we hope you'll try with us.
Okay, well, let me see.
No
I
problem.
get my body shorter here. There's just my hand.
Okay, and so Lindsay, will you walk closer to the camera? And then any chance you could scrunch down a bit? Just a little? Yeah, and move a little move a little to your right. Okay.
Is that it?
That's really good. Okay, I'm gonna take a picture. 3, 2, 1. It's pretty close. And then you guys can relax. Well, if anyone else has anything they want to share or add, feel free. But I just wanted to say, thank you guys for all joining in, and thank you, Leslie, for being here. It's so nice to talk to all of you and just connect a little bit.
Thank you for having me, Holly. That was a complete honor to be asked. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you guys.